Over the next couple chunks of lessons, we're going to be drawing a comic strip. In order to do this, we are going to be reinforcing a lot of things that we have learned over the last couple sessions. We're going to be drawing straight lines, we're going to be drawing curved lines, we're going to be coloring shapes in. But there's one thing that I want to cover before we dive into that, and that is the selection tool. This is how the selection tool works. I'm going to start by just drawing a line with any old brush. My selection tool is in the upper left-hand corner. It's right by the arrow tool. And so if I tap that, you'll see that it is now turned blue. So I'm no longer using a brush, I am using the selection tool. So if I draw on my canvas, I'm going to see these little dotted lines form around the shape that I have just drawn on the canvas. Now what I've done here is I have just made a selection. If I tap on this little arrow up here next to the selection tool, I have now grabbed these pixels and I can move them anywhere I want. So that's basically what the selection tool is letting you do, is it's letting you select part of a layer and move it around and manipulate it. I'll just undo that real quick. Whoops. Oh well. And like every other tool in Procreate, there are many options with the selection tool. So if I tap on that again, you're going to see a little bar come up along the bottom and you see some options here. Right now the word freehand is selected because I am drawing my shapes freehand. As a little side note here, after I've selected something, if I want to close this selection, I just tap on that little gray circle to turn it into a blue circle, and that creates a mask. Think of a mask like masking tape when you're actually painting something. Now that I have this mask set up, if I want to, I can grab my brush tool, and if I paint, I can paint like I normally do, but if I go outside the lines, I can't because there is a mask over that. It's not going to let me do that. If I ever want to leave my mask, all I have to do is tap on my selection tool and it will unselect it for me. Another neat thing you can do with the selection tool is I'm going to tap it, and instead of actually drawing, I can just tap on the canvas anywhere I want, and it is going to draw a straight line between those points, and I can use the selection that way, and then I can grab the arrow tool and I can move that piece around. I'm going to unselect that all by tapping the arrow tool. I'm going to do another selection here, and I'm going to show you some of the other options. So I have something selected here, and say I want to select a little bit more. Maybe I missed. No problem. If I hit the plus key, I can then continue drawing, and it is going to add that section to my mask. Now say I want to remove something, all I have to do is draw it, and then tap the little minus icon at the bottom of the screen, and it will remove that part from my mask. The other icons down there do some interesting things. For example, after the plus and minus, you will see this little funky icon here, and if I tap that, it's going to inverse this mask, which basically means it selects everything that I didn't have selected before. It has basically reversed that mask. And the X button just simply closes that mask. There is one icon down there that I did not talk about, so I'm going to do another selection, and it is these two lines on top of each other, and what that's going to do is duplicate anything that I have grabbed in that selection and put them on their own layer. So I'm going to tap that. You see it got a little bit darker, and that's because it has created a new layer. So when I tap on my layers in the upper right hand corner, we can see that a new layer has been created from that selection. I don't need it, so I'm going to swipe and delete it. That covers the freehand section of the selection tool, but what about the automatic selection? Well, let's grab that select tool and tap automatic. Once automatic is selected, say I want to knock out any of the white. I tap on any white area and it is going to grab that for me. I could also tap on any black area and it's going to do something similar. Now I have shades of gray going on in this little sketch that I've put together. And so if I want to grab some of those shades of gray between the black and the white, I take my finger and I can slide my threshold to the left or to the right to grab more of that in my mask. Now that I've done that, I'm going to place it on its own layer, so I'm going to tap these two little lines down here, and then I'm going to see that layer, and I'm going to turn off the old layer so you can see what's happened. It's grabbed some of those shades of gray, it grabbed the area that I tapped of the black, it's grabbed some of those gray areas, it's grabbed that black area that I tapped, and it's grabbed some of the shades in between. I think the threshold really comes in handy if you're trying to grab a selection of an area of maybe a more organic object, maybe something that isn't kind of the solid colors we've been using, but something that has various shades in it. So let's clear these layers. I'm going to start by turning my other layer on, and then I'm going to delete this one, and then with this one, I'm just going to clear that layer, which erases everything on that layer. Couple little notes before we leave this section. I want to talk about distorting and skewing. To start off with, I have my object here. I'm going to just grab my arrow tool and it's going to select my entire layer. So this is all contained within one layer. We can do some extra things to this selection now that we have it. If I press and hold on any of these node points, so if I grab the one in the upper right hand corner by pressing and holding, now I can distort, and I can just grab that one corner and almost get like a perspective feel by moving that back and forth. I'm going to undo that. I can also grab one of the nodes in the middle and skew it. So I will tap and hold this top middle point, and now I can skew this object to the left and right as well. And one last thing that I can do is, this is very subtle, but if I tap above or below or left or right of this object, I can nudge it in the direction that I tap. So if I tap on the right hand side of my canvas, I can nudge this object ever so slightly. And it's very hard to see because it's only moving at 1 pixel at a time. So I'm going to zoom in. Maybe that'll make it easier to see. Now when I tap, you can see it's kind of moving. I'll zoom way in and maybe we could see better. Can you see it moving when I tap? It's moving very slowly because it's moving only 1 pixel at a time, but that's what nudge does.